I know it's a hybrid. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who are joining us by Zoom. I know that Dina is on her way, and so we'll expect at least one more person here. I'm going to actually turn it over to Alicia to do roll call, and then we'll get started. We've got a full agenda to cover in an hour.
Good afternoon. Okay, Chris Lucier,
Here.
Derek Freeman, Amora Austin,
Joining remotely from Grand Rapids.
thank you. Mr. Cotton,
Joining remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
thank you. Jennifer Greger has noted she will be absent today. Kathy Zenda Wilson,
Present.
Donald Woodward,
Present.
Keona Ackley,
Present, joining remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
thank you. Dina Spencer, Pastor Hooper,
Present.
Whitney Wardell, Leanna Wesley,
Leanne.
Leanne, sorry. Thank you. Bonica Hearing,
Present remote from Battle Creek.
thank you. You're all set.
And then Roger.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roger Ballard.
Just yes, Roger Ballard.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and welcome. We have a full agenda, as I noted. I am excited. We also have some guests here that we will do some introductions of, and I wanted to welcome Leanne and Roger. Roger, I know you're not still questioning whether or not you're officially on, but we do welcome you on once that happens. And Leanne, if there's anything you wanted to share with the group about your interest in the HRB and what brought you to us.
I have been living in Battle Creek for a couple of years now and wanted to get involved with my community. So I'm very excited to join you all.
All right, thank you. We're excited to have you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, anybody wants to stay after, maybe we'll do a little bit of getting to know each other a little more since it's been so long since we've been in person. And Roger, thank you for joining us. Anything that you'd like to share?
Just excited about coming on as city commissioner, and then maybe they'll vote me in at the next meeting.
I'm pretty
look-
confident.
Look forward to sharing my knowledge and learning your knowledge about the HRB.
All right, thank you. All right, so the last time we met was November 16th. You received minutes. I would welcome any approval or discussion.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and supported to approve the minutes of November 16th. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed, same. All right,
We didn't hear from Miss Austin. We need to get her vote, and we didn't hear from Jeffrey Cotton.
okay.
Commissioner Gates.
Jeffrey and Amira, can we hear from
Aye.
you?
Approved.
Aye.
Yep, we got two ayes.
Thank
All right, thank you for tracking that. All right, now on to any communications.
None,
Okay, committee reports.
there were none.
Okay, and then old business. This is where we're gonna spend the bulk of our time. So you should have received an email with lots and lots of data around the Citizens Review Board survey that we conducted. And just for a little context, the NAACP and some other community partners had come together and put together a proposal that outlined a Citizens Review Board. It has now been a couple years. We, at Rebecca's request, that came to us for review. And I know that the feedback was, we would like to hear more from the community about their interest in a CRB, its formation, what it would look like, et cetera. So we worked with the city staff to put together a community survey that was completed. I think December 4th, it was closed. I'm guessing that it's really irrelevant. Yeah, it's not open anymore. So it is closed and we now have the data. Chris has done some work to help us cross tabulate some of that data. But before we get into that, I really just want to open it up and get reflections for those of you who've had a chance to review it. I know that Chris is pulling it up here for us so that you can look at anything in particular that we want to highlight. But any initial reactions or thoughts is based on your review?
Hi, this is Kiona. It was a lot of data to get through. And some of it I had to go through it twice. But it did show that the majority felt like it is a need to have the CRB in Battle Creek, which I feel I agree with, and I feel like that is a good direction for us to go in. It was a bit concerning to hear some of the interactions. But also on a positive note, there was also some good interactions that was shared. But it was very also unfortunate to see that some felt the need to not share because of possible retaliation. And I was just hoping that we could one day create a safe space. So those that chose not to, given that reason, would feel comfortable, at one day in one space. And hopefully having the CRB would help bring those people about to, we would be able to build and earn their trust so they would feel comfortable with sharing with us one day.
Thank you, Fiona. Yes.
Don Woodward. I was just curious as to the demographics of those that responded and how that aligns with the demographics of Battle Creek.
Chris, do you have any of that information?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll share that in a minute when we go through his cross tabulation, if that's okay. But yeah, I think how it mirrors, and I do want to make sure that you knew that there were 3 different surveys that were out. It was done in Spanish, Burmese, and in English, and you had the results from all of those. I also found it fascinating that there were some differences across cultures too, that felt like they lifted themselves up. So it's worth noting. What do we have here? That's gonna be a bit.
So-
Yeah.
I know it's hard to see, but
Yeah.
there's no other way for me to get it
Yeah.
up really well. So, I mean, so in this basic report that they provided, there is demographic data about who responded to the survey. So, in terms of zip codes are, we struggle with how to assign people geography because most folks don't know a lot of things, a lot of the common geographies we use. Zip codes, one everyone knows. Unfortunately, zip codes is one of the most useless geographies for analyzing any kind of data. It doesn't do much for you, but it is actually 49015, which is south of downtown, covers all of Lakeview. And just a little bit of the city of like the Battle Creek Public School District area, the downtown neighborhoods had the highest number of respondents, 43% or 120 of the respondents were from that zip code. I mean, we did get healthy participation from the others. How long have you lived in Battle Creek? This was really fascinating. 63% of the folks that responded have lived in Battle Creek more than 20 years, which I've never had a response like that before in all the surveying we've done, where the folks that were most invested in responding to this have lived here for an awful long time. I thought that was really interesting and stood out. So in terms of age distribution, the older you are is at the very bottom and the younger you are is at the top. So 18-24 is the youngest category and has the fewest respondents. 75 years or older was the second lowest and at the bottom. So then you can just sort of get a gauge of the distribution by age. There are some differences there, but that didn't surprise me a ton. Do any children 17 or under live in your household? 66% said no. Are any other members of your household age 65 or older? 70% of respondents said no. Are you Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, or Spanish origin? 95% said no. 13 respondents identified as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin.
Yeah, this was just for the English version, not all 3.
Is that the case here?
I don't know.
I wouldn't assume that. I would
Okay.
assume that all data was presented. They wouldn't break out the data. But I could be wrong about that. What is your race? So the vast majority of folks that filled out the survey were white, 79%, which is an overrepresentation of the population in the city of Battle Creek by maybe 4 percentage points or 5 percentage points, maybe a little more. American Indian or Alaska Native is actually probably an overrepresentation by a person or two, not a big deal. Black or African American, that's about 4 percentage points lower than what you would expect, so it's 13%. And if you were, that's if you were just, you know, it aligning with the exact population of, which it may not be what we wanted, you know, in terms of the distribution. But, and gender wise, it was close to 50-50. And then in terms of sexual orientation, 86% identified as heterosexual, 3% identified as lesbian, 2% identified as gay, 5% identified as bisexual, and 5% identified in another way. Parsing some of the responses, because some of these categories are so small, it's kind of tough to do. So there may be something to glean from it if we sort of aggregated some of these categories. I don't know if that's sensible or not, but I just thought.
Thank you. Does that help?
Yeah, very much. Thank you.
I want to make sure we get the folks that are virtual too. Any thoughts or reflections about the data as you reviewed it?
None for me.
Thank you.
None for me either. Thank you.
I'll do a really quick note. Just a couple things that stood out to me. It was about 66% of people said their interactions with police had been positive, but that 58% still felt like there was a need for a citizens review board. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Another thing that stood out was just that over majority felt that current and former police should be on board. And I think previously I didn't think that a member of law enforcement should be on the board, but just reading the explanations kind of changed my mind a little bit. And I think that would be helpful for just some insight on policy and procedure and things like that. Just having someone who had been in law enforcement on board would actually be an asset, I think, to the group. So those are just a few things that stood out to me.
Thanks, Amira. I had the same thought. It really had me, I was glad I reviewed the data with an open mind, not with my mindset about what I thought this should be, and that I was able to review it and really think about what are the people who've had interactions with the police expressing an interest in. So I thought that was fascinating. And there was an overwhelming concern that, you know, this is something that has to need not only focus on what's negative or the interactions that might be detrimental, but also the things that are positive. And so others? So Chris, based on your analysis, what is it that you'd like to?
Well, so I got the data on Friday and was able to disaggregate all the data, but it still looks kind of raw. So I just want to show folks that we have disaggregated everything. It's available. I could share it. It's just, it's kind of raw. And then I've been able to sort of clean up some around the basic question of do we need an HRB or not? And I just would think we run through that, it'll give us an idea of like how disaggregating the data can really affect our thinking about things.
Yeah, please do.
So, and then if we have specific questions around a specific question that was asked, we could maybe dig into the raw data a little bit to get an answer. So this is in Excel. You know, we had all of the responses from everyone is in a chart or you know, Excel spreadsheet here. So we've got all the data there. And then I just went by the different demographics that we collected. So this is zip code, and not every question that was in the survey is easily disaggregated. We had a lot of questions where you could select multiple choices, like have multiple answers. And that makes it very difficult to disaggregate. So something if we wanted to disaggregate data in the future, thinking a little bit about how, I didn't think about it, how we ask, yeah, because it's be about 5 hours to disaggregate the data for one question that has all those multiple answers hand by hand. So this is just by zip code, what we're, you know, this was again, the count of respondents that was in the other piece that we just covered. But then, you know, we've got multiple charts then for the questions we could ask. So how many folks have had direct interactions with the police department? You know, the majority of folks having 1 or 2 interactions overall, and then you can sort of see how the percentages vary. And here, that's not a ton of variation. You know, it's a little higher for 9037 you know, in that particular area, but there's nothing like really stands out there. This was that question about what kinds of experiences have you had, negative. This is one I had multiple answers, and this was the easiest one for me to do. You can see it just gives you all these different results based on the combinations people selected. This was an easy question to disaggregate. It was that overall, how would you rate the general presence behavior of the Battle Creek Police Department? And you can see that there are some differences based on zip code. Yeah, with 49317 having the lowest, or no, not the lowest, 4917. This covers a lot of sort of the north side up to Emmett Street, up to Bailey Park. 4937 covers the Washington Heights neighborhood, I believe Urbandale as well, right? Let me switch over to just like age real quick. So we have the data on all of these different questions based on the different pieces. So how many interactions based on age? Nothing really jumps out at me off of that one chart, just segregating based on age, right? So question of should the board membership of the Battle Creek CRB include current or former law enforcement representatives based on age? You know, this is pretty much the younger you are, the less you think that that's a good idea. So the older you are, you know, the more likely you're to think that's a good idea. That's worth. So this is the raw data. I've got all of this. I've got it for each one of those demographics. We could share it. You can see it's not like presentation ready.
Yeah.
I tried to pull out just the, I was able to spend time with the data just around the question of, do you think we need a CRB? And look at that across all of the demographics. Actually, I selected out of here race and gender, where there seemed to be some interesting things worth reviewing to my eye. Doesn't mean it's the only interesting piece, but this is what I could put together. So, so this is just looking at, you know, do you think Battle Creek needs a CRB based on race? How they responded to that question. 93.8% of American Indians or Alaskan Natives thought yes, we do. African Americans, 75.9% of African Americans thought we did. And white folks, 56.3% thought we did. By zip code, if you were in the 49037 zip code, 81% of those folks thought we needed one. Right, again, that covers Washington Heights and Urbandale. If you were Hispanic or Latino, 84% Hispanic and Latino folks thought that we should have one. This sucker. You know, by age, it's the older folks are the ones that were least likely to think that we needed if you're over the age of 55. So, and our youngest respondents were the most likely to think we needed. So you can see the rest of this by gender. Women were more likely than men to think that we needed one. And then heterosexuals and folks that identified it another way were, you know, 58% heterosexuals. The vast majority of folks are heterosexual, so it's very close to the overall percentage, 60.5%. But you can see folks that are the respondents that were bisexual or gay or lesbian. You know, the vast majority of those folks thought that we should.
Chris, I have a question on the row labels that you've got there under bisexual, gay, and heterosexual. I think there was only 2 or 3 or something responses from gay. did that weigh as way into the 60% at the total at the bottom? Did that weigh the same as somebody that had 75% respondents by heterosexual, for example?
No, it's not. So the 60.5% is the overall result from the survey. So this
Okay.
is just, and I have the next chart. I actually give you the whole numbers so you can understand that little piece a little bit better.
Okay,
But then that was the piece we wanted to break that out. It's so like a strategy for, we don't really have enough data there to really feel like we're getting a representative sample of those demographic groups.
sure.
So sometimes maybe figuring out, is it meaningful if we consolidated some of them to maybe get some larger numbers, or, would be a way to address it, but. There's some ways that this is helpful though, because we did get some comments as well, which helps us think about, what are some of the mindsets that are reflected. So this is just a breakout slide that goes a little bit deep. I don't know if this thing gets on screen. Okay, so this takes a look at both race and ethnicity as well as gender in the equation. And so amongst men, you can see that in terms of who was in favor of having a citizen review board, African-American men, 61.5%. White men, that percentage drops below the grand total of 61% in favor. White men drops down to 53.4%. That's, 6 percentage points lower than white women. African-American women were across these demographic groups were the highest, most supportive of having a citizen review board. And you can see there's the percentages, but then there's also the number there to give you an idea of how many respondents in each category.
This is helpful, Chris.
And then we can't go through all of these, but we can, I could turn this into a PDF. I can get it to Rebecca and we can send it out to the board. So folks can look at some of this information later if they want to. You had access to all the comments, but I do think it's interesting to look at the comments based on the demographic groups that you fit into. And so I just focused in on who were out of this chart, who were the 3 demographic groups that most supported it, and who are the 3 demographic groups that most opposed it, and just group those comments. And I'll just read a couple to give you an idea. Let's run the screen some more. Okay, so this is American Indian or Alaska Native yes responses. And so this is just all the responses for that group, what I just realized. Oh yeah, so I just grouped all of them together. I didn't look at, there weren't major gender differences. So we just put all of them, both genders. So saying first, I want to be clear, I'm already a citizen police volunteer who helped out BCPD during some of the community events time to time. Given what I see and experience some of the police companies get handled, that makes me feel BC should have a CRB. Okay, so someone with some experience and understanding, I think it would be a good idea. I strongly believe oversight is needed for many reasons, including the perception of the community. I think that the way police handle matters is fair and unbiased. I think there needs to be accountability for actions that don't align with those expected of our local police force. It will also help to foster a sense of trust in the department. And there's just a whole slew of these. And you if you look over all of them, you start to get a sense of sort of what are some of the mindsets driving their interest in seeing one. For Black women, I feel that Battle Creek needs a citizens review board for another layer of transparency and accountability. Very much, because for me, it seems as though other people get more contribution. I'm a citizen, I pay taxes, I don't bother anybody, and they bother me. I have friends that are current and former police officers, so I know that there are many great officers. I also know from my own experience, that of others that there are bad cops. Police is an occupation where a bad officer bringing the prejudice, stereotypes, personal ignorance of the people they should be serving can result in fatal or very negative life-altering results for the citizen involved. Checks and balances, extra help opens doors for more possibilities. It provides another opportunity to view and provide support and feedback to a situation. So. This are the Black men yes responses. Sorry, there's some weird apostrophes got uploaded into like 9 random things. I've got to respect that I apparently. Let people look at this for a minute. And then so I look at some of the no responses and who was most opposed, and just a warning, some of these were a little triggering for me, so I'm just gonna throw that out there. Folks able to get a sense of what's.
What does it mean at the top where it has white men, no response?
I'm sorry, so the responses were no. Sorry.
They didn't think a CRB was needed.
Yeah.
So these
Yeah.
are their reactions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to that question. This doesn't have a lot of polish. I did this afternoon.
I was just trying to draft comments if they had no response.
Yeah. And then this is just continues because there's a lot of white males that weighed in. So, and then the next 2 groups, and there weren't a lot of responses, but in terms of percentages, like, the next highest percentage of it was Black men who had no responses. And this was just some of their comments. And there was only one Hispanic Latino member because there was such a small group.
Yeah.
That ended up being a higher percentage. I think there may have been some other members that didn't comment or something. So this is the only comment we do have. So that's what I have in terms of
Yeah.
disaggregating the data. I don't know if that affects people's thinking of the original read on the data at all. But
Well, I think that it was, for me, a fascinating reflection of where we are in this polarized environment right now. There were such vast responses that it wasn't a surprise. Some of the things were a little triggering for me too, Chris, as I read them. And there were even more that I just thought, I can't believe somebody put this out there in the world, but we opened that for their reaction. So, ultimately our goal here was to gather data that would help us inform, do we feel that the community wants a citizens review board? It feels like the majority of the respondents said yes. If that's the case, and we do have some more granular data about its composition, which is another question we had, like, should there be current or former police officers on it? Our task or our charge here is simply to support our community partner, which is NAACP and his other partners, on whatever proposal they're going to put forth in partnership with us. So it's what, based on what they've proposed, and you also have their proposal, do we feel is going to be best positioned to be in front of commission? And I'm going to actually ask Rebecca if she would talk to us a little bit about that process, so that we have in our head what it is specifically we're doing. Rebecca, are you there?
Yep, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And please know, this is new territory, I think, for all of us. And it's been a very educational process. What we had always envisioned as next steps is a recommendation coming out of the Human Relations Board to the City Commission, in which they would discuss in a workshop setting. The reason why we begin with a workshop setting is that's really a better way to engage the commission. And then I envision staff also having a recommendation and or response at that particular time. And then we will listen to the city commission to give us guidance on next steps. Ultimately, and I think we have said this in the human relations before, it will be the city commission's decision about whether or not a CRB is established and, you know, what that looks like, its composition, members, how they're selected, purpose, focus, those types of things. And please know, I don't think that it's going to necessarily be solved in one commission workshop, but at least what we would look for is commission to give staff and or anyone else direction about what maybe additional information they need to then bring forth, you know, as a formal resolution and or from and or an ordinance into the city's or code of ordinances.
Thank you, Rebecca. I do have a question that is, I think will be helpful for us. What would we need to be prepared to go into a commission workshop with? Is it a proposal that starts that? Is it simply an agenda where we're coming in for a conversation and we bring in data and a concept? Or what specifically would you see us bringing into that workshop?
I think it makes much more sense to come in with a proposal. And, you know, summation of the work that the Human Relations Board has done, no different than I would believe that the NAACP would want to do in regards to their, you know, to their proposal. And staff is the same. You know, I think what I want to share is, and I've reflected upon this, is that we may all be slightly different, but that's not a bad thing as far as a recommendation in front of the city commission. And so, I mean, that's why we have this these discussions. That's why we do it in a workshop session. And again, it would come forth as recommendations from what I see, Human Relations Board, NAACP staff, and they may all align and they may be slightly different.
Okay, thank you. I know that there was an interest, and I think, Pashan, it was you who suggested that there is a way for us to potentially take the foundation that was the proposal that NAACP brought to us and adjust or alter it based on what we were learning from the survey. Like, what are the elements that are important? For those of you who recall reviewing the proposal, there is a lot in here that's about how it's organized as almost an independent agency or organization. And I think there was definitely the concern that this should be, like the HRB, an extension of the city that allows for access to the data that would be needed. It creates the relationships and partnerships that are needed to make something like this successful and effective. So there are some I think mechanical changes we'd want to make to whatever it is that we put forward. I do know that Carrie Whitfield from NAACP had some folks at one of the January commission meetings talking in support of the CRB, just trying, I think, to really kind of set the stage and prime the pump, if you will, about if and when this comes in front of them, they're hoping that it would be supported. So there's been some work done. I didn't know that that was going to happen. I don't think any of us did. If anybody else in this room knew, that's fine. It just wasn't brought to the HRB first, so we didn't know that that was going to happen. Otherwise, we could have been a little more prepared to maybe join them or at least know what their intent was. But regardless, I think our next steps from here is that it sounds like we've got support from the community saying, yes, this is something that we need to explore. From a timeline perspective, if we want to bring a proposal that would feed the workshop, we need to set a timeline for that, because what's it going to take to actually put something together? Because Rebecca, we don't want to just take the NAACP proposal and bring that to the commission. That's at least the sense I've gotten from the HRB members to date, and I'm assuming from city staff as well.
Correct.
Okay. So that's going to take some, and are we permitted to work in a work group style as so we could have a subgroup of this that can work on that together?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I would ask for volunteers then now for anybody who wants to participate in that process so we could put something together. Okay, we've got Tasha, I think Dina, Pastor Rupert, myself,
Jeff Cotton.
Jeff.
there anyone else online?
Commissioner Ballard.
When I,
Depending on the hours, I would be interested as well.
Okay. Okay, Leanne too, okay,
I would
and
too, if
Chris,
it's not too many.
okay, all right. So what we'll do then as a follow-up is we'll pull together, I'll work with Alicia and whoever else I need to, maybe Becca, to get that group together sooner than later. We'll bring in the proposal. We will actually just kind of start looking at a template for what needs to go in there. And then from a timeline perspective, Rebecca, how much time do you need from us? Or when, do you have a recommendation for when we want this workshop to happen?
That's, yeah, we're working on the workshop schedule for 2023 right now. And so it really will be, I'm not trying to rush anything. But there are two choices when it comes to a workshop. We either do it an hour prior to the commission meeting, or I think with a topic such as this, which may have, a lot of public comment, that we may want to do that not at that time, but do it, for example, the commission has done 2-hour workshops on a Thursday. So we probably would look for a Thursday sometime in late February, early March. I'm seeing some openings. And I also, just want to be respectful when Kerry Whitfield came to the commission, he was asking the commission to actually make a decision in the first quarter of 2023. And I think that is too aggressive. I think there are still things to be discussed. And I always want to put out there, we're going to bring forth information and recommendations, but the commission may determine that there are other things that are needed, or they want us to go and go down something slightly different path. All those things we really do need to take direction from the city commission. We're just going to be educating and informing, based on the work that has been done by staff, by the NAACP, and by the Human Relations Board.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Just a note that Amira did have from the last part of the discussion. had a
Oh, were
question
there any
in
no
chat.
responses with comments from women? Oh, did you have anything when you were looking at that?
Yeah, so the second slide we looked at was Black women, yes responses. Unless I skipped that slide.
No, we saw the
Oh,
yes
yeah,
ones. I think
yeah.
she's asking if there were any no response with comments with.
From
people who didn't
women?
want it.
No,
Yeah.
women were not, women were amongst the groups that were most supportive of,
Okay.
like, across all other racial and ethnic demographics.
Okay. Amira, I hope that was helpful.
Yep, helpful. Thank you.
All right, thanks for catching that, Chris. All right, so we will then, just to kind of close the loop on this, the work group will meet, put together a draft proposal. I think for purposes of just getting support of the whole group, we'd want to send that out and just have you get your eyes on it if you're not part of that work group. And then we'll work with Rebecca and her team on getting it scheduled and figure out what our roles are in that. I want to actually turn it over to Rebecca because we do have a few other folks in the room that we haven't introduced, and I want to make sure that they are properly introduced, and then we can go on from that. So that'll be part of our new business. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. And it's hard to see everybody in the room. I do know specifically, I would like to introduce to you and welcome Kimberly Holly, the city's new diversity, equity, inclusion officer. She is in day 3. So I'm sure she feels like she's drinking from a fire hose, but she's here on day 3, and every day I pop into her office that I can and say, "Yay, you're here." Because you can imagine all of the information that is coming at her right now. But we're thrilled to welcome her to the city team. She is tasked with taking a look at the work of MGT and our equity audit and the diversity, equity, inclusion plan that they proposed, and helping us figure out how we implement that throughout the city as an organization. So welcome, Kimberly. We're thrilled to have you here at the Human Relations Board and at the city.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're beyond excited. I'm beyond, I'm not gonna speak for everyone. I'm beyond
Yes.
excited to have you. on this call.
Yes, we're very happy.
Congratulations, Kim. Awesome.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Love coming on. screen.
Congrats,
Me too. All right, and I want to make sure that you had an opportunity, to introduce yourself to everybody here.
Sure.
Also to just chime in if you wanted to on what we've been discussing.
Well, certainly. Shannon Bagley, most of you I've met, some of you I haven't, just met you today. So good to meet you all. I am your new interim chief of police. This is day, I can't remember what day today is, but we're in the second week. No, very honored and humbled to have this opportunity. Kim and I met for a good couple, maybe almost 2 hours
Yeah.
this morning, and it was great to get to know you and looking forward to working closely with you as well, and with everyone here. So I'm here for a resource and whatever help or information that I can contribute. I have some experience specifically with HRBs in my former, before I left or before I came here, I retired from the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. I was the inspector and I ran the Office of Professional Standards for a number of years. And I was the liaison between our department and the City Manager's Citizens Review Board in Kalamazoo. Worked very closely with them on a multitude of issues. So I do have some experience as to what we found successful. And any questions, I would offer up what we lived through in Kalamazoo to kind of help maybe guide and answer your questions as we move this process along. So thank you.
That's great to know. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I was curious as I read through all of the comments and this data, like, could this be useful or is it useful to the police department to just have in its current state? For you
Sure.
To review and just take some, time to process what this means and how you can bring that back to the department.
Right. Well, I actually read the entire,
Yeah.
it took a while.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely fascinating and it really helps get a sense, right? Take the temperature and kind of, you may think you know some things, but actual raw information helps you kind of have a better formulation of your actual idea of what you think you don't know, right? So I found it very educational. And yeah, anytime we gather information that is that raw directly from our citizens, that is something that we want to take a look at. And I shared with Kim, we have a thing that's been going, it's called Spider Tech. And it is actually a survey generated automatically. We send it to the individuals, we go and respond to calls. So within a matter of minutes after we're done with a call for service, they're getting a survey about, how is your interaction with the police? We're professional, and then there's a few other questions related to the service that was provided. So we've been doing that now for almost, I'd say 2.5 months, about 2 months. We've had 1,700 respondents. And within that, so you get the comments and then you're graded from a 1 to 5, right? 5 being the highest grade you can achieve, 1 being the lowest grade you can achieve. And it gives us a sense of where we are and where we need to tweak our service, right? Because at the end of the day, what we provide is a service to the community and we want to provide the very best service we can. So out of those, it's about 1,686, I think is the number we're at, so almost 1,700. And we're averaging about a 4.5 to 4.6 rating. And granted, and that's from the respondents. So every time we go out, we're sending a survey out.
On a scale of what?
5.
Yeah.
So, but there's also critical, right? I want to hear the critical as much as I want to hear the positive. And then we're able to kind of shape and mold what trainings we're going to have our officers go to as a result of the information we get, how we approach, with not just trainings, but how are we conducting interactions with our sergeants? Are our sergeants properly reviewing our videos? We have body cams and in-cars, all these things which help us kind of tweak and guide. A, how do we look at accountability? B, are the processes that we have in place currently, is it catching those things, or are we properly reviewing those things in a timely manner so that we're having the same understanding as the responses that we're getting? So it's a great tool. Like I said, we're only about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months into using that tool, but it's already paid tremendous dividends for us and how we're kind of positioning ourselves moving forward.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of calls in a short amount of time, or a lot of survey responses anyway.
Well, and you're talking for calls for service, you're probably 35, over 5,000 in that time frame, maybe close
Okay.
to it. Yeah.
Good to
So,
know.
yeah.
All right.
So what kind of message are the citizens getting when they get that to make them feel secure in providing actual feedback that's
Sure.
non-biased or with any kind of
Right.
fear of
So it's a text. So the first thing you get, so when officers get dispatched to a call for service, they'll get a text that says, hey, your officer's there. And then through our CAD system, that's what generates our computer aided dispatch. it will say, okay, the officer's en route, right? So part of, one of the questions is did we arrive in a timely manner? How was the officer's demeanor? How was our professionalism? So, and they can respond, that we don't track any of the information. I mean, I won't say that it's not a possibility that you could go back and see who gave the comment, but that's not something that we track.
Right.
So we try to keep it as anonymous as possible, but yeah.
Is that communicated to the user?
That's a great question. I haven't seen the whole, I've seen the questions and the nuts and bolts. I haven't seen it. So I can get you that answer, but I don't have that. No, it's a great question.
It is.
Find that out.
And what triggers the survey?
Call for service.
So a 911 call.
Or, well, not just a 911 call. Well, we don't go to every call. So they're specific, like if we go to
Sure.
investigate, let's say a CSC or something, we don't send those to those. So a burglary, a B&E,
Sure.
a larceny, an MDP, those type of level of service calls, ones that aren't traumatic. We don't want to traumatize the individual anymore by going down the road question. So those type of calls, I would say more of your routine calls for service it's automatically triggered by that.
Define routine calls for service, just because I'm curious
Sure.
about this.
Somebody broke into your car and stole a laptop.
Sure,
Or
got it.
somebody ran over your mailbox or hit it with a baseball bat.
Anything anyone calls a cop for,
Yeah.
so like, I mean, it's been a long time, but I remember once it was check status of a hamster, so.
Well,
This was 2007 in the post neighborhood.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
So what I mean by is calls we get on a daily, but it could be an accident, like traffic stop. Sometimes it could be generated to be a traffic stop. But normally it's those calls that there's not like a traumatic trauma associated with the call.
Violent kind of.
Violent, we just wouldn't do that. We don't want to, put any other additional trauma just by a questionnaire with that, so.
So I would just throw out there like, so they give access to the data, but that's not yours, that's sort of goes into the sort through. But if you are able to assign a geography, I mean, disaggregating that data by geography, I'd be really curious to compare that to actual calls to service and see, what percentage of folks in various neighborhoods are following up. But we just had all these folks from Lakeview fill out our survey. And that's not just frankly from my perspective, that's not who I'm most concerned about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm concerned about other neighborhoods and how they feel about having a citizens
Yeah.
review board. And so
Definitely.
disaggregating data that way really
Yep.
helps to make sure that, because to her point, our folks from some neighborhoods,
Just not responding.
yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
not responding as
Sure.
often.
Sure. No, I believe we can track it geographically.
Mhm.
I can check on that. So, yeah.
So if I heard you correctly, then 2/3 of the respondents didn't respond, about a third did.
Mhm.
And out of the third that did, you got a 4.5 to 4.6, which typically the people that respond are the people that have complaints. So that is tremendous.
There's also, I mean, so your overall, one of the questions is what was the overall level of service, right? And if you're at a 4.4 or 4.5. Now, that they had comments associated with it, they might have been. The nature of the call could be, well, I'm satisfied with the conduct and the professional of the officer. I'm not happy with the outcome because they didn't get the response. Well, we couldn't give you the response that you needed. So those are captured in the narrative portion of it.
Okay.
But we're looking at, okay, there's things that we can control, right? And we have to give you the answer as it relates to us legally. And sometimes that is a counter to what the individual is wanting for the outcome.
Sure.
So, but that's captured in the narrative, but overall, they're saying the officer was professional and I can't remember. There's a handful of other questions associated with it. But yeah.
Well, it does feel like there is great opportunity for us as a city to really demonstrate what transparency looks like. You're collecting data at time of service. We have all of this data here. A CRB itself, which sounds like there's overwhelming support for, is another way for us. People are eager to share their stories about what their experiences are. And if we're giving them opportunities to do that, there's a lot of value in that. Just by building the relationships with the police department, making the community overall more safe. So I think we're on the right path. And I think there's also different ways to disaggregate that data potentially beyond just geography, but by sexual orientation, by race. But if you can gather that, I don't know if call of service, how much information you actually get. But
So, and I'd have to look at how far it's broken
Yeah.
down. You want to keep it pithy
Mhm.
because you want them to,
Right.
you want the responses. So
Right.
you hit, and I can't remember what the science was behind what Spider Tech said. Here's the responses here's the questions which usually generate the best volume of response. And so that's where we want the information. So I don't know how far, but we didn't break it down to, that far down the line.
yeah,
Is there an opportunity to add a link at the end to say, hey, we'd like to provide more personal data about you for tracking purposes? You can click on this link to.
It's a great question. Not sure. There might be, maybe for cost, they might throw that in.
That is a big factor too. That's always a factor.
I would just guess that would start to complicate things very, very
Yes.
fast.
Yeah.
Geography is probably gonna be something that is probably already there, and then you have the staff that would be nothing, GIS professional, that would be nothing.
Well, yeah,
but
I mean,
the
because
Yeah.
these are generated through our CAD system, I'm almost positive it's.
The other thing is, so the other thing is who's someone looking at it, because you were saying, hey, these are the purposes that we're using the system for, we're.
sorry, Kiona, I'm sorry if your hand has been up for a while, I just noticed it, please go ahead.
No worries. Congratulations on the interim position too, Chief. And
Oh,
thank
thank
you so much for making us aware of that. I did not know that that goes out to folks when they do call in. But my question, I know you stated the purpose, but I didn't hear whether or not it was the information, the data that's collected. Is it in any form, shape or form used to help with training purposes so it's a 2-in-1 question. So that's part one. The second part is there ever a follow-up with the person who completed the survey if they graded it to like, I don't feel that this officer was professional or the outcome was not to my satisfaction?
Great question. So yes, we do utilize the information for training purposes. Now, we're only about almost 2.5 months into this, acquiring the data. So we're still getting our legs with how we want to approach using it. Part of the anonymity portion of it is we're not really, if there's a distinct complaint or violation or an allegation made of misconduct, yes, we would investigate that. We haven't seen that yet. It's been more of a dissatisfaction of service as a result to an outcome that was not adequate for them. Means we didn't have any control over it, and they were explained that they weren't happy with that process. Now, in the future, there could come a situation in which we may have to generate either an internal investigation as a result of alleged behavior. But mind you, the goal is we want the raw truth. So, and we have to temper wanting the raw truth with not feeling that they can remain anonymous in their comments. But there could be, without a doubt, a situation or scenario where we would act on information within the narratives that we get.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was our new business. Was there any other new business that we had?
Anything else on the agenda?
Okay, community points of interest. This is the time that we really want to know, are there things you're hearing out in the community that you'd want our city staff and partners to know? It's just going to be an open forum to be able to share that before we go to public comment. Before, while you're thinking about whether or not you have anything, I did want you to know that we have talked about bringing code here, and that was going to be this month. And we've asked Chris if we could do that in February because we had the survey results and we wanted to prioritize this so that we could get moving on it. But we do have that planned for our February meeting, and we'll have code will be here to present.
There'll be a
correct?
presentation.
Yep. And so plan on that, and hopefully we can be in person again so that we can have some dialogue. But anybody hearing anything out in the community? Kiona?
I would like to lift, TRHT is doing the healing circles again this year. I know they sent out some information via email if it's anything that anyone is interested in. I think it's an extension off of the National Day of Racial Healing. But if you like any additional information or contacts regarding it, please reach out to the TRHT team and they would be glad to elaborate more and also get you added to a healing circle if that was of interest to you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody's hearing?
I heard something just recently, and I'm kind of surprised I just now heard about it. And this may or may not be able to be answered today. But somebody mentioned to me, we've been doing our pride planning for our festival for this year. And somebody just mentioned to me just last week that, so we always have a police presence. Just for safety reasons, at our parade festival. And that somebody told me this past summer, when people were leaving Lollapalooza, that the police officers on site were doing breathalyzers. And I want to know if that is a standard practice.
They were doing what?
Breathalyzers, since we served alcohol for the first time. Now, was I witness to that? I was not. I just heard this a week ago. So take it with a grain of salt, but I want to know, is that standard practice? And can you find out if that really happened?
Sure, I can, without a doubt, I can inquire. That would not be standard practice.
Okay, that's
So
what I thought.
unless someone is in conjunction with operating a motor vehicle or
Sure.
any other vehicle on the roadway, whatever that may be, but no, other than in an investigation of a potential drunk driving,
Sure.
no, that we wouldn't just.
I didn't think so,
Yeah.
just because I've been to lots of festivals downtown and the focus is alcohol. And I'm like, they don't stand there doing it when it's burgers and brews, which is the whole purpose of having the festival in the first place. You know what I mean? Where
Sure.
in some instances, drinking is secondary to the primary purpose of
Yeah.
what you're doing. So, okay.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, if you would find out.
Sure.
I'll make sure you have my contact and just
Certainly.
let me know.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how accurate it is. It's something I just heard the other day, so.
That's helpful. Thank you, Dina.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, well, I guess first and foremost, Chief Bailey, I'd like to say congratulations on the appointment.
Thank you.
Kim, congratulations to you too as well on the appointment. Chief, I was really wondering about the Kalamazoo Battle Creek Central High School basketball games with the non-attendance that's been going on. And I raised this issue a long time ago, I think, with Chief Blocker on a meeting a while ago. So it's been an issue that's been concerning me for a minute. So I'm kind of wondering what's going on. I see all the complaints. I see a lot of the community feeling like they being punished for the actions of, maybe one adolescent. So I'm just wondering what's going on with that.
well, sure. Well, first, I want to say thank you, Jeff, for your question and appreciate the question. It's tough. The schools are weighing the safety of their entire student body with a sporting event. And that's a tough decision, but that's a decision that is absolutely solely up to the school systems. We work in conjunction and support the school systems. We weren't consulted in that decision, but we work to support whatever that may be. We have officers when requested at certain sporting events. We've had that. We would continue to do that. But that is strictly a decision made by school administrations, and those conversations happen between, and to my knowledge, the superintendents of both of those school systems. So that was, the police department had no input to that decision, but we're there to support them in any direction, how they move forward.
That's actually extremely interesting to me. So a follow-up question would be, did they reach out to you guys first and see if y'all could provide some extra security, right? And me and you have had personal conversations.
Sure.
I probably would never propose extra police presence around children, right? But I mean, that would seem like a first step before just shutting the games down. So I'm wondering, did they even attempt to resolve the issue with maybe a little extra security? Did they reach out to y'all for that?
Not to my knowledge, Jeff. I don't believe that happened. And once again, that was their decision to make. And they have the authority to make those decisions. But like I said, it's clear through our SROs and through our relationships with the superintendents here in Battle Creek, that we are here in a supportive role, and we will do our very best to meet any request that is made.
All right. Yep. Appreciate your answers.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jeffrey. I know that I read a bunch of stuff about that as well, and it did sound concerning. It just felt pretty, like a pretty extreme decision that didn't have a lot of input. So it's good to hear. Well, not good to hear, but it's interesting to hear that it was made kind of in isolation. Anyone
Okay.
else? Yeah.
For the good of all, I just want to say, as you know, that February is the Black History Month. And I wanted to give appreciation to the commissioners who voted to hoist the flag, the African-American flag. And so, and it'll be up during the month of February. So I only have one or two definite activities that'll be going out, but normally during African Black American History Month, there's many activities going on throughout the community, and they'll be listed in a lot of the information forthcoming. But I do have one on Saturday, February the 25th. Faith Temple will be hosting its annual Black History presentation. And basically local churches will be providing activities for young children and adults. And that'll be 3 o'clock Saturday. And so everyone, the community is welcome to attend. So I'd say just keep your ears open and eyes ready for activities during Black History Month.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
All right, do we have any public comments?
I have no one here that has public comment. No. Eric, do we have anybody in the waiting room?
No one additional, no.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, any board comments? I know we've made some announcements and we've shared anything else. Is there anything else anybody from the board wants to share?
I would like to welcome Chief Bagley and Kim as well, and Roger to the board. So it's good to see. And I'm not sure your name. So
Leanne.
welcome and welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see all the new faces. I didn't get a chance to say that. And I also am incredibly proud to see another flag besides the pride flag. When you and I talked originally, that was the intent, because it wasn't just for us, it was for everyone. And it's such, to me, it's amazing to see that somebody else is taking advantage of that and using it like it's supposed to be used and representing all of us. So I love that.
I just was curious, is, like, we didn't really, I don't think it was discussed, like, if Kim was gonna have an official role with the HRB.
It's a good question.
Is that,
I believe that's Rebecca.
Yes.
Chris, it's day 3. We have to give her a little time.
You actually had alluded to it a long time ago.
I want to make sure.
But it sounds like that's still in the air. That's great. Okay.
I did.
I just wanted to know how hard I needed to work. So,
Rebecca, was that meaning that you wanted her to show up for day 4?
Thank
Well,
you,
the way I
Commissioner. That's exactly right. We want her to be here at day 4, so we'll work into that.
Yeah.
and then one other piece, I just want to make note of, if we're going to be presenting the city commission with a proposal and a recommendation, that is a really significant action for this board. And historically, we've had a couple of things where we took that kind of action. A lot of times it's consultation with different city departments or with local organizations who are lifting things up, and we're sort of weighing in or making sure that there's a place where that can be discussed. This is a much more sort of formal and official action for us, and it's a place where we really can show what we're about. So I just think it's a really significant thing. I want to bring it up. A lot of people volunteer to be a part of it. I know there's a lot of people that care about this issue a great deal, but it's something like when we do those kinds of things, it's when I'm most proud of the work of this group, and it's something that's going to be really visible. You know, last couple of times we've done that, weighing in on the fair housing stuff a few years back. We're still doing work around that initial work that the Human Relations Board did, and some of the most high profile stuff that we've done. So just throwing it out there, not to put any pressure on folks, but
No pressure at all.
but I just, it is a big deal. So just
Thank
making
you.
sure we're thinking about
Thank
that.
you. I'm really proud of this group for sure.
As a housekeeping item, are we intending to do these hybrid meetings going forward for this group? Rebecca?
That's really been at the discretion of the board, if they would like to offer hybrid options. I should note that when we don't do online public comments now unless somebody is in person. So to give a public comment, you have to be in person. And we don't publish call-in information. You know, it's just kind of this new world, hybrid. Some is virtual, some is in person, but from the city's perspective, you know, we are stretching our resources really thin, and we also have to be mindful of the Open Meetings Act. For the Human Relations Board, it's helpful that they can have these options, but not all of our boards and commissions can have these options, so it does get a little bit confusing. But in this instance, Alicia, we leave that to the board chair and the board itself to say, like this time, we would like to meet hybrid in February. And so that is just at the discretion of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that. For this group, just to get a sense right now, how many appreciate this hybrid opportunity? I have a feeling, there is something different about being in person for those of us who can be, but I do, and I see some hands up on the screen as well. I think the idea of giving opportunities to be able to participate virtually if they need to is good, but to be able, when we can, to be in person is great. So for next month, then we will do the hybrid as well in February. And then if we get to a point where it's going to be only in person, I think that would be a gradual decision eventually, but for now, this works. I want to make sure, Bonika, did you have a question or just raising your hand that you like the hybrid? Okay. All right, well, we are after 5 and I know we're keeping folks beyond the time. I want to thank everyone for your time, energy, commitments, and we will be together again February 15th. Oh my gosh, that's quick. I know this meeting was late. I also want to thank everybody for changing the date. I was out of town last week, and so you allowed me to be able to be here by moving the date. So we will see you in a few weeks. And I don't know, I can't promise that our work group's going to get together before then, but we are looking forward to the presentation by code. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.